The scent of lemon polish clung to my fingers as I worked the soft cloth over the mahogany table for the third time. My reflection stared back at me from the gleaming surface, dark circles under tired eyes, hair pulled back in a practical bun, nothing special. Just another invisible woman in a uniform. The grandfather clock in the corner of Mr. Castellano's study ticked relentlessly, each second reminding me I had 12 more hours of work ahead before I could drag myself back to my tiny apartment and collapse. I'd been working for 6 weeks at the Castellano estate, and I'd seen the owner exactly twice. Both times from a distance, surrounded by serious men in dark suits with telltale bulges under their jackets. The staff whispered about him. Vincent Castellano, businessman, philanthropist, and if rumors were true, the most dangerous man in the city. The kind of man whose name made other men go pale. Remember, never enter his private quarters unless specifically instructed, Mrs. Harding, the stern housekeeper who'd hired me, had warned. Never speak unless spoken to. Never look him directly in the eyes, and never, under any circumstances, ask questions about Mr. Castellano or his business associates. The rules were clear, the pay was excellent, and with my mother's medical bills piling up, I couldn't afford principles or curiosity, so I dusted, polished, and vanished whenever I heard approaching footsteps. A sharp electronic tone made me jump, the cloth falling from my fingers. I froze, eyes darting around the study until I spotted the small black intercom mounted near the door. Elena. The voice was deep, with an accent that curved around the syllables of my name in a way that sent a chill racing down my spine. How did he know I was here? I'd never even met him properly, yet he knew my name. The estate was wired with security cameras, of course, but the idea that he might be watching me made my skin prickle. Yes, sir, I managed, my voice embarrassingly small. Bring coffee to my office. Black, 2 sugars. The connection cut before I could respond. I exhaled shakily, gathering my cleaning supplies with trembling hands. In 6 weeks, this was the first direct order I'd received from Vincent Castellano himself. The kitchen was 3 floors below, connected to the main house by a long corridor lined with artwork, worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. I prepared the coffee with methodical care, arranging the delicate porcelain cup on a silver tray alongside a small crystal dish of sugar cubes. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I made my way back up to the 3rd floor, where Mr. Castellano's office occupied the entire east wing. 2 men in suits stood outside the double oak doors. Neither spoke as I approached, but one gave me a cursory glance before knocking twice and opening the door just wide enough for me to slip through. The office was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's manicured gardens. A massive desk dominated the space, behind which sat Vincent Castellano. My first proper look at him stole the air from my lungs. The whispers hadn't done him justice. Tall, broad-shouldered, with olive skin and sharp features that looked carved from marble. His suit probably cost more than my yearly rent, and he wore it with the easy confidence of a man who had never worried about money. But it was his eyes that truly captured me. Dark as midnight, and completely unreadable, watching my every move with unsettling intensity. "Set it here," he said, gesturing to a clear spot on the desk with one ring-adorned hand. I stepped forward, painfully conscious of my worn uniform and the lingering scent of cleaning products that clung to me. As I placed the tray down, my hand betrayed me with a slight tremor, causing the cup to rattle against the saucer. "Are you afraid of me, Elena?" His voice was soft, almost conversational, which somehow made it more threatening. "No, sir," I lied, keeping my eyes fixed on the tray. "Just startled. I don't usually... that is, I haven't... Look at me when you speak." It wasn't a request. I forced myself to meet his gaze, immediately regretting it. There was something in those dark eyes, something that made me feel like prey. "How long have you been working in my home?" he asked, reaching for the coffee. 6 weeks, sir. And do you find the work satisfactory?" The question confused me. Why would someone like him care about my job satisfaction? "Yes, sir. The position is very adequate." His lips curved into what might have been a smile on anyone else. On him, it looked predatory. "Mrs. Harding speaks highly of your work ethic. Says you're meticulous, thorough." He took a sip of the coffee, eyes never leaving mine. "I value thoroughness, Elena." "Thank you, sir," I said, desperate to escape his scrutiny. "Will that be all?" Instead of answering, he opened a drawer and pulled out a slim folder, placing it on the desk between us. "Do you know what this is?" I shook my head, a knot of dread forming in my stomach. "It's your background check. Quite extensive, single, 28 years old. Father deceased, mother with multiple sclerosis, currently receiving experimental treatments at Mercy General. Treatments that cost," he glanced down at the folder, "significantly more than your previous salary as a hotel housekeeper could cover." The room seemed to shrink around me. How did he know all this? Why would he care? "Sir, I'm not finished." His tone remained even, but there was steel beneath it. 2 years of community college. No criminal record. 3 previous employers, all with positive references. Apartment in Westridge. No close friends. No romantic entanglements. He closed the folder. A solitary life. My cheeks burned with humiliation and the first sparks of anger. "Is there a problem with my background check, Mr. Castellano?" Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, at my small act of defiance. "No problem. I'm simply curious why someone with your clean record and obvious intelligence is content scrubbing floors and dusting bookshelves." "Not everyone has the luxury of pursuing their dreams," I said, immediately regretting my sharp tone. "I mean, the position pays well, and my mother's medical bills." "Yes, I'm aware." He cut me off, waving a dismissive hand. "Your dedication to your mother is commendable. Family loyalty is important to me." There was something in the way he said it that sent a chill down my spine. "I have a proposition for you," he continued. "One that would significantly increase your income." Warning bells clanged in my mind. I'd heard stories about wealthy men and their propositions to female staff. "I'm quite satisfied with my current position, thank you." A flash of amusement crossed his face. "Not that kind of proposition, Elena. I'm offering you a promotion. Personal assistant, rather than housekeeping staff. The role comes with a substantial salary increase and a suite in the East Wing." "Live here?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. "But my mother would receive the best private care money can buy," he finished smoothly. "Better than what she's currently receiving at Mercy General." My mind raced. This made no sense. "Why me? You don't even know me." He leaned back in his chair, regarding me with that unnerving intensity. "Let's just say I've observed enough to know you're suitable, discreet, efficient, no attachments that might complicate things." "Observed?" The word hung between us, heavy with implication. He gestured vaguely toward a bank of monitors partially visible through a door behind his desk. Security feeds, dozens of them, showing every corner of the estate, including, I realized with a jolt, places where I'd believed myself alone. "You've been watching me," I whispered, a mixture of violation and fear washing over me. "I watch everyone in my home, Elena." His voice hardened. Security is paramount in my position. 1,000 questions burned on my tongue, but self-preservation kept them locked away. What had he seen that made him single me out? What did being his personal assistant actually entail? And most importantly, was this truly an offer I could refuse? "I'll need time to think about it," I said carefully. "Of course." He nodded once, then returned his attention to some papers on his desk, dismissing me. "You have until tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp." I backed toward the door, desperate to escape the suffocating tension of the room. As my hand found the doorknob, his voice stopped me. "One more thing, Elena." I turned, finding his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that stole my breath. "The cameras in the East Wing library caught something unusual last night. Something I think we should discuss before you make your decision." His expression remained neutral, but there was something dangerous lurking beneath the surface. "Come to the library tonight, 10 p.m. My blood turned to ice. The East Wing library, where I'd accidentally broken a small crystal figurine last night while dusting. A figurine I'd carefully glued back together and returned to its place, hoping no one would notice. But he had noticed. He'd been watching. As I slipped out the door, I felt the weight of his eyes following me, and the terrible certainty that I was stepping into something far more dangerous than a simple job offer. Outside the office, I pressed my back against the wall, trying to slow my racing heart. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how could I possibly get out? The hours crawled by, each tick of the grandfather clock like a hammer against my nerves. I moved through my remaining tasks mechanically, changing linens, vacuuming carpets, dusting surfaces, while my mind spiraled through increasingly dire scenarios. By the time I finished my regular duties, my uniform was damp with nervous sweat, and my hands wouldn't stop trembling. The staff dining room was nearly empty when I finally took my dinner break at 8:30. I picked at a plate of pasta, tasting nothing, while trying to make sense of the day's events. Vincent Castellano had been watching me. For how long? And why? What could he possibly want with someone like me? "You all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost," I startled, nearly knocking over my water glass. Maria, one of the kitchen staff, stood beside me with concern etched on her weathered face. At 60-something, she'd been with the Castellano family longer than anyone else, and treated the newer staff with motherly concern. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." Maria's eyes narrowed. Did something happen? Was it him? The way she said him left no doubt who she meant. I hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. "Mr. Castellano spoke to me today. He offered me a different position." Maria's face drained of color. She glanced around the empty dining room before leaning close. "Listen to me carefully, Elena. Whatever he offered, whatever the money, turn it down. Find another job. Leave this place while you still can." A chill ran through me. "What do you mean? What do you know?" She shook her head, lips pressed into a thin line. "Girls like you, pretty girls with no family ties. They don't last long here. They disappear." "Disappear?" My voice cracked on the word. "What are you talking about?" Maria straightened suddenly, her expression shuddering. I turned to find Mrs. Harding standing in the doorway, her cold eyes fixed on us. "Elena, aren't you supposed to be finished with the third-floor guest rooms by now?" she asked, voice brittle with disapproval. "I've completed all my assignments for today," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Then perhaps you should retire early. You look unwell." There was something in her tone, not concern, but something closer to warning. "Yes, ma'am." I stood, casting one last glance at Maria, who studiously avoided my eyes. As I walked past Mrs. Harding, she caught my arm, her grip surprisingly strong for such a thin woman. "Mr. Castellano values loyalty and discretion above all else," she murmured, her breath hot against my ear. "Remember that before you engage in gossip." I pulled away, hurrying toward the staff quarters with her eyes burning into my back. The implication was clear. The walls had ears, and speaking against Vincent Castellano was dangerous. In my small room, I sank onto the narrow bed, hands pressed against my temples. Maria's warning echoed in my mind. Girls disappear. I should run, grab my few belongings, and flee into the night. But what about Mom? Her treatments were working for the first time in years. Without this job, without the health insurance it provided, she'd deteriorate again. And if I accepted Castellano's offer, she'd have the best care money could buy. My phone buzzed with a text from the care facility. "Your mother had a good day today. She asked when you're visiting next." The simple message twisted my heart. I couldn't abandon her, not even to save myself from whatever trap I sensed closing around me. At 9:50 p.m., I changed into my only non-uniform clothes, jeans and a simple blue blouse, and slipped out of the staff quarters. The main house was eerily quiet, most of the staff having retired for the night. Only the occasional security guard patrolled the shadowy corridors, nodding silently as I passed. The east wing was the oldest part of the mansion, with dark wood paneling and ornate moldings that always made me feel like I'd step back in time. The library doors were closed when I arrived, the polished wood gleaming under the soft hallway lights. I hesitated, my hand raised to knock, when the door swung open of its own accord. Vincent Castellano stood framed in the doorway, transformed from the businessman I'd seen earlier. He'd shed his suit jacket and tie, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms corded with muscle. A tumbler of amber liquid dangled from his fingers. "Exactly on time," he said, stepping aside to let me enter. I appreciate punctuality. The library was cavernous, walls lined with leather-bound books from floor to ceiling. A fire crackled in a massive stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across antique furniture and Persian rugs. The air smelled of aged paper, wood smoke, and expensive cologne. "Drink?" he asked, moving to a crystal decanter on a side table. "No, thank you." I remained standing near the door, instinctively positioning myself for a quick exit. He poured himself another finger of whiskey, studying me over the rim of his glass. "You've changed." Self-consciousness washed over me. Next to his obvious luxury, my civilian clothes looked cheap and ordinary. I thought, since I was off duty, it suits you better than the uniform. He gestured toward a leather armchair near the fire. "Please sit." I perched on the edge of the chair, back straight, hands clasped tightly in my lap. He didn't sit across from me as I expected. Instead, he moved to a small control panel on the wall, pressed a series of buttons, and a section of the bookshelf slid away to reveal a large screen. "Do you know why I asked you here, Elena?" he asked, his back to me. "You mentioned something about the cameras, about last night." My mouth went dry. "A figurine." "Ah, yes." He turned, leaning against the wall with casual elegance. "The 18th century Venetian crystal, worth approximately $30,000. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. "I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I tried to fix it. I'll pay for it, of course, although it might take some time." He silenced me with a raised hand. "I'm not concerned about the figurine. I'm interested in what you did after breaking it." Confusion replaced my panic. "I don't understand. Let me show you." He pressed another button, and the screen flickered to life. I watched myself on the security footage, dusting shelves in the library. In the grainy black and white video, I accidentally knocked over the small crystal figurine, my horror evident as it shattered on the hardwood floor. I knelt, carefully gathering the pieces, my expression a mask of despair. But instead of reporting the accident as protocol demanded, the Elena on the screen pulled a small tube of adhesive from her pocket, the emergency repair glue I always carried for my mother's reading glasses, and painstakingly reconstructed the figurine piece by piece. The process took nearly 40 minutes, my face twisted in concentration, occasionally wiping away what must have been tears of frustration. When finished, I returned the repaired figurine to its place, examining it from every angle to ensure the damage wasn't visible. Then I sank to the floor, buried my face in my hands, and wept silently before composing myself and continuing with my duties. The screen went dark. Shame and fear churned in my stomach. "Why did you fix it yourself instead of reporting it?" Vincent asked, his voice oddly gentle. I swallowed hard. I was afraid I'd be fired. I needed this job. My mother... No. He moved closer, towering over me. "The truth, Elena." Something in his tone made lying impossible. "I was ashamed," I whispered. "It was a stupid mistake. I didn't want anyone to know how clumsy and careless I'd been." Vincent nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. "Pride. I understand pride." He set his glass down and moved to stand before the fireplace, flames casting half his face in shadow. "But what fascinates me is your resourcefulness, your determination, the care you took." He turned to face me fully. "Do you know what my business is, Elena?" The abrupt change of subject threw me. "I've heard... rumors." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I'm sure you have. Let me clarify some things. Yes, I have interests in construction, waste management, shipping, real estate. Yes, I have political connections and influence in the city. And yes, some of my business practices would be considered unorthodox by conventional standards." My pulse quickened. He was practically admitting to being what everyone whispered, a mafia boss. "I've built my empire on 3 principles," he continued. "Loyalty, discretion, and resourcefulness. The people closest to me must embody all 3. And you think I do?" I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. "Because I fixed a figurine? Because you broke something valuable? And instead of running away or making excuses, you fixed it. Methodically, patiently, without complaint. Then you carried the burden yourself." He stepped closer. "Do you know how rare that quality is?" The way he looked at me, like I was some precious, unexpected discovery, made my skin prickle with warning. "What exactly would being your personal assistant involve?" I asked cautiously. "Initially, managing my schedule, handling correspondence, accompanying me to meetings and events." He circled behind my chair, his proximity raising goosebumps on my arms. "As trust develops, your responsibilities would expand accordingly." "And my mother's care?" "Transferred to a private facility of my choosing. The best doctors. Experimental treatments not available to the general public. No expense spared." It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "Why me?" "Surely there are more qualifications can be taught." He cut in. "Character cannot." His hand came to rest on the back of my chair, inches from my shoulder. I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the spice of his cologne mixed with whiskey. My body tensed, caught between the instinct to flee and a strange, unwelcome flutter in my chest. "There's something else you should know," he said, his voice dropping lower. "The position requires absolute loyalty. To me. Not to my business, not to my family. To me personally." I turned to look up at him, finding his face much closer than I expected. "What does that mean exactly?" His dark eyes held mine. "It means your life becomes intertwined with mine. Your priorities become mine. Your secrets become mine." The firelight caught the sharp angles of his face, making him look almost otherworldly. "And in return, my protection extends to you and your mother, completely, permanently." A shiver ran through me. This wasn't a job offer. It was something far more binding, a contract, a surrender. "What if I decline?" I managed to ask, already suspecting the answer. "Then you return to your duties as before. No penalties, no repercussions." He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. "But the offer expires tonight." I stood, needing to put distance between us. Moving to the fireplace, I stared into the flames, trying to think clearly despite the chaos in my mind. "May I ask one question?" "You may ask." I may not answer. "The other assistants, Maria mentioned girls who disappeared. What happened to them?" A heavy silence fell. When I turned, his expression had darkened, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. "Maria should be careful about spreading rumors." Fear clutched at my throat. "Please." "There was one assistant before you," he said, cutting me off. "She betrayed my trust in ways I won't discuss. She didn't disappear. She was relocated, generously compensated for her silence." The way he said relocated sent ice through my veins. I didn't entirely believe him, but pushing further seemed unwise. "I need your answer, Elena." The grandfather clock in the corner struck 10, each chime like a countdown to a decision that would alter my life irrevocably. My mother's face floated in my mind. Her tired smile, the way she tried to hide her pain, her determination to never be a burden despite her deteriorating condition. "If I accept," I said slowly, "I want something in writing about my mother's care. A guarantee that continues even if our arrangement ends." Something like respect flashed across his face. "Done." "Anything else?" 1,000 requests clamored in my mind, but only one made it to my lips. "I want to know why. The real reason. Not this story about a figurine or my character." Vincent's expression changed, surprise giving way to something unreadable. He moved toward a chess set positioned near the window, picking up the white queen and turning it thoughtfully in his fingers. 3 nights ago, you were cleaning the surveillance room while my security chief was reviewing footage from one of my restaurants. Do you remember?" I frowned, searching my memory. "Vaguely. I try not to pay attention to the screens. It doesn't seem right to watch people without their knowledge. Yet you saw something that caught your attention. Something that made you pause." The memory surfaced suddenly. A grainy image of a man slipping something into a woman's drink while she was looking away. I'd frozen mid-task, watching in horror. "There was a man drugging someone's drink," I said quietly. "Your security guard didn't notice. He was watching a different screen. I didn't know if I should say something." "But you did," Vincent said, replacing the chess piece with precision. "You pointed it out. Then you went back to your work, as if it were nothing." I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. It seemed like basic human decency. Because of your intervention, we prevented an assault. The would-be perpetrator turned out to be connected to a rival organization attempting to compromise one of my business partners. His eyes locked with mine. You have good instincts, Elena. You notice things. You act when necessary, and remain invisible when appropriate. He moved toward me, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. That's the real reason. My heart hammered against my ribs. Everything in me screamed that this was dangerous, that I was standing on the edge of a precipice. Yet underneath the fear was something else. A whisper of possibility, of change, of escape from the grinding cycle of poverty and worry that had defined my existence for so long. Yes, I heard myself say, I accept your offer. His smile was slow, satisfied, the look of a man who'd never doubted the outcome. Welcome to your new life, Elena. He extended his hand to seal our bargain. As my fingers met his, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a deal with the devil himself. The transition happened with dizzying speed. By morning, my few belongings had been moved from the staff quarters to a spacious suite in the East Wing, a luxurious prison of cream-colored walls, plush carpeting, and windows that opened just enough to let in fresh air but not enough for escape. Not that I was planning to escape, not yet. My mother was transferred to a private medical facility by noon. When I video-called her that evening, her face glowed with a vitality I hadn't seen in years. The doctors here are incredible, sweetheart, she said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. They've started me on a new treatment protocol, something experimental from Europe. That's wonderful, Mom, I replied, fighting to keep my expression neutral despite the turmoil inside me. How are your accommodations? Like a 5-star hotel. I have a private room with a garden view, gourmet meals, even a physical therapist who comes twice daily. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Elena, how can we possibly afford this? What's going on? I'd prepared for this question. I've been promoted. Mr. Castellano needed a personal assistant, and he chose me. The position comes with extensive benefits. My mother's expression shifted to concern. What kind of man is he, Elena? I've heard rumors about the Castellano family. He's just a businessman, Mom, I lied smoothly, surprising myself with how easily the deception came. The rumors are exaggerated. She didn't look convinced, but didn't press further. Just be careful, sweetheart. No job is worth your safety or your principles. If only she knew how far beyond principles we had already gone. After the call ended, I sat on the edge of my new king-sized bed, taking in my surroundings. The suite was larger than my entire apartment, with a sitting area, a marble bathroom stocked with luxury products, and a walk-in closet that stood mostly empty, awaiting the wardrobe Vincent had promised would arrive tomorrow. A knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Mrs. Harding, her usual stern expression replaced by something closer to wariness. Mr. Castellano requests your presence in his study in 30 minutes, she said, her eyes taking in my jeans and t-shirt with barely concealed disapproval. I have taken the liberty of bringing you something more appropriate to wear. She held out a garment bag. Thank you, I said, accepting it with as much dignity as I could muster. I've worked for the Castellano family for 22 years, she said abruptly, making no move to leave. I've seen many changes, many people come and go, including other assistants, I couldn't help asking. Her mouth tightened. Mr. Castellano values loyalty above all else. Remember that. With those cryptic words, she turned and walked away, leaving me wondering if I'd received a warning or a threat. Inside the garment bag was a simple but elegant black dress and matching heels that fit perfectly. I wondered uneasily how Vincent knew my size. The dress was conservative enough for business but cut to accentuate the curves I usually hid beneath my loose uniforms. Vincent was waiting in his study, engaged in a tense phone conversation in what sounded like Italian. He gestured for me to sit while he finished, his tone leaving no doubt that whoever was on the receiving end was in serious trouble. I took the opportunity to study him unobserved. In a charcoal suit tailored to his powerful frame, he projected an aura of controlled menace even while perfectly still. A single gold ring adorned his left hand, not a wedding band, but something with a crest or symbol I couldn't quite make out. A thin scar bisected his right eyebrow, the only flaw in his otherwise immaculate appearance. He ended the call abruptly and turned his attention to me, his dark eyes moving over my transformed appearance with undisguised appreciation. Much better, he said, his voice a low rumble that sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. How are you finding your accommodations? Very comfortable, thank you. I kept my voice neutral. My mother seems pleased with her new facility. As she should be. Dr. Neville is the leading MS specialist in the country, normally has a 3-year waiting list. He moved to his desk, retrieving a leather portfolio. Your contract as promised. The terms of your employment, your compensation package, and the provisions for your mother's care. I accepted the document, scanning the first page. The salary made me blink. It was more than 5 times what I'd been making as a housekeeper. This is generous. I pay for excellence. Vincent settled into the chair across from me. You'll also find provisions for your mother's care in perpetuity, regardless of your continued employment. My eyes snapped to his face, searching for the catch. Why would you guarantee that? Insurance, he said simply. Against unnecessary anxiety on your part. I need your complete focus. I flipped through the remaining pages, noting clauses about confidentiality, loyalty, and availability that essentially meant I would be at his beck and call 24/7. What exactly will I be doing? For now, shadowing me, learning my business, my schedule, my preferences. Eventually, you'll manage my private correspondence, schedule meetings, accompany me to business and social functions. He leaned forward slightly. Your first task begins tonight. We have dinner with an associate who's arriving from Miami. I need you to observe and remember everything. Who he speaks to, his exact words, his mannerisms. You want me to spy on your dinner guest? I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. Vincent's expression hardened slightly. I want you to do your job. Observation is a critical part of it. He stood, signaling the end of our conversation. A car will pick us up at 7. Wear the dress, leave your hair down. The last command, so personal and specific, caught me off guard. My hair? I prefer it down, he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request, but an order. As I returned to my suite to prepare, the reality of my situation sank in. I wasn't just an assistant. I was something between a spy, a confidant, and a possession. The realization should have terrified me, but instead, I felt a strange detachment, as if watching someone else's life unfold. That evening, a sleek black Bentley with darkened windows carried us to one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. The driver, a serious-faced man named Marco, who I recognized as one of Vincent's security personnel, opened my door with silent efficiency. Vincent emerged behind me, placing his hand at the small of my back as we approached the entrance. Remember, he murmured close to my ear, you are an extension of me now. Watch, listen. Remember. The maitre d' greeted Vincent with a deference bordering on fear, leading us immediately to a private room in the back of the restaurant. A man rose as we entered, silver-haired, tanned, with the artificial smoothness of recent cosmetic work tightening his features. Vincent, he greeted, embracing my employer with the excessive warmth of someone trying too hard. It's been too long. Antonio. Vincent's response was cooler, more measured. This is Elena, my new assistant. Antonio turned his attention to me, his eyes lingering a beat too long. Charming. You always did have excellent taste. Something in his tone made my skin crawl, but I maintained a polite smile, following Vincent's lead as we sat at the elegantly set table. Throughout the meal, the conversation flowed between English and Italian, discussing what seemed like legitimate business ventures, but with undercurrents I couldn't quite grasp. I noted how Antonio's right hand trembled slightly when certain names were mentioned, how his smile never reached his eyes, how he drank too much wine too quickly. Vincent, by contrast, remained perfectly controlled, nursing a single glass of scotch throughout the evening. Occasionally, his leg would press against mine under the table, a reminder of his presence, his ownership. As dessert was served, Antonio's phone chimed. He glanced at it, his expression changing subtly before he excused himself to take the call outside. What did you notice? Vincent asked the moment we were alone. He's nervous, I replied without hesitation. His right hand trembles. He touches his watch whenever you mention someone named Gallo. He's drinking too much. 4 glasses of wine while you've had 1 scotch. And he just received a text that upset him. A hint of approval flickered in Vincent's eyes. Good. What else? I hesitated, then decided honesty was safest. He doesn't respect you as much as he pretends to. There's resentment underneath his friendliness. Vincent's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flashed in his eyes, very perceptive. Antonio believes I took something that was rightfully his years ago. He's been nursing that grudge for a long time. Before I could ask what he meant, Antonio returned, his jovial mask back in place but strain visible around his eyes. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of subtle power plays and coded conversations. When we finally left, Antonio kissed my hand a moment too long, his eyes meeting mine with a message I couldn't decipher. In the car, Vincent was silent for several minutes before speaking. You did well tonight. The simple praise shouldn't have pleased me. Yet I felt a treacherous warmth spread through my chest. Thank you. May I ask a question? You may ask. What did you take from him? Vincent turned to look at me, his expression unreadable in the dim light of the passing street lamps. His future. The cryptic answer hung between us, adding to the growing list of mysteries surrounding the man who now controlled my life. Days turned into weeks, and I settled into a routine that was anything but routine. Each morning began with reviewing Vincent's schedule and security briefings. I accompanied him to meetings with business associates, politicians, lawyers, taking notes, observing interactions, learning the complex web of alliances and enmities that comprised his world. I learned quickly that Vincent Castellano was a man of precise habits and exacting standards. His coffee had to be prepared exactly right. French press, water at 200 degrees, beans ground precisely 30 seconds before brewing. His suits were custom made in Milan, his shirts hand-stitched, his shoes polished daily. He ate at exactly the same times each day, worked out in his private gym every morning at 5 a.m., and read for exactly 1 hour before bed, usually classics or military history. What surprised me most was his intelligence. He spoke 5 languages fluently, could discuss Renaissance art or quantum physics with equal ease, and possessed a memory so precise it was almost frightening. Nothing escaped his notice, especially where I was concerned. You're not sleeping, he observed one morning as I brought him his daily briefing. The circles under your eyes are darker. I hadn't told anyone about the nightmares that had plagued me since taking this position. Dreams of being watched, of running through endless corridors, of drowning in dark water while Vincent stood on the shore, observing with clinical detachment. Just adjusting to the new schedule, I lied. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't press the issue. Instead, he surprised me by saying, "Take the afternoon off. Get some rest. We have the charity gala tonight." The gala, a fundraiser for children's cancer research that I'd spent weeks helping organize, would be my first public appearance as Vincent's assistant. The thought filled me with equal parts anxiety and something closer to excitement than I wanted to admit. The black gown Vincent had selected for the gala arrived that afternoon. A sleek, floor-length creation of silk and lace that probably cost more than my old apartment's yearly rent. Along with it came a velvet box containing a diamond necklace and matching earrings that made me gasp aloud. "I can't wear these," I told him when he stopped by my suite to check if everything was satisfactory. "They must be worth a fortune." Vincent, leaning against the door frame with casual elegance, merely shrugged. "Consider them tools of the trade. Tonight you represent me. You'll dress accordingly. As your employee or your possession." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Instead of anger, amusement flickered across his face. Is there a difference? That was the maddening thing about Vincent Castellano. Just when I thought I understood the rules of our arrangement, he would shift them, keeping me perpetually off balance. Sometimes he treated me with cool professionalism, other times with an intimacy that made my pulse quicken despite myself. He demanded absolute loyalty, while revealing almost nothing of himself in return. The gala was held at the city's Grand Art Museum, transformed for the evening into a glittering wonderland of lights and flowers. As Vincent's sleek Bentley pulled up to the entrance, I felt a flutter of nerves. This would be my first public appearance by his side, under the scrutiny of the city's elite. "Remember," Vincent murmured, as he helped me from the car, his hand warm against the bare skin of my back. "You're not the help anymore. You're an extension of my authority. Act accordingly." Camera flashes greeted us as we walked the red carpet into the museum. Vincent moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his hand never leaving the small of my back, guiding me, claiming me. I recognized faces from news and magazines, politicians, celebrities, business tycoons, all nodding deferentially as Vincent passed. Mr. Castellano, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, approached, hand extended. "So glad you could make it. Your contribution was exceedingly generous." "Senator Harris," Vincent replied, his public voice smoother, more charming than the one he used in private. "The cause is worthy. Elena, this is Senator William Harris. Senator, my assistant, Elena Reyes." The senator's eyes lingered on me with poorly disguised interest. "A pleasure, my dear. How long have you been working for Vincent?" "Not long enough to discuss it at a charity event, Bill," Vincent cut in smoothly. "How's the campaign going?" I observed their interaction carefully, noting the tension beneath the senator's smile. The way Vincent's casual question carried the weight of something more significant. This was what I'd been trained for over the past weeks, to read the currents of power and influence that flowed beneath seemingly innocent conversations. As the evening progressed, I found myself separated from Vincent, drawn into conversation with the wives and girlfriends of his associates. They studied me with predatory curiosity, their questions thinly veiled attempts to determine exactly what my relationship with Vincent entailed. "Such a lovely necklace," purred a blonde woman in a red dress. "Vincent has excellent taste in jewelry. And women." "I wouldn't know," I replied coolly. "I'm just his assistant." She laughed, a brittle sound like breaking glass. "Honey, Vincent Castellano doesn't hire just assistants, not ones who look like you." Before I could respond, a hush fell over the gathering. I turned to see what had captured everyone's attention. A woman had entered, tall and striking, with porcelain skin and hair so black it seemed to absorb light. Her crimson gown clung to a figure that made even the most beautiful women in the room look ordinary by comparison. "Sophia Russo," the blonde beside me whispered, a note of fear in her voice. "Vincent's ex. Nobody expected her to show up tonight." I watched as the woman moved through the crowd with regal confidence, people parting before her like the Red Sea. Her gaze swept the room, finally landing on Vincent, who stood across the ballroom deep in conversation with a group of men. For a moment, neither moved. Then Vincent turned, as if sensing her presence, and their eyes locked. Even from a distance I could feel the electric tension between them, a history written in the rigid set of his shoulders, the slight parting of her ruby lips. "Excuse me," I murmured to the women around me, moving instinctively toward Vincent. I didn't understand my own urgency. Was I trying to protect him or myself? I reached him just as Sophia did, sliding to his side with a composure I didn't feel. "Vincent," she greeted him, her voice a smoky contralto with the barest hint of an accent. "It's been too long. Sophia." His voice betrayed nothing, but I felt the slight tensing of his body beside mine. "I wasn't aware you were back in the country." Her crimson lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Some business required my personal attention." Her gaze slid to me, assessing and dismissing in a single glance. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your latest acquisition?" The word stung, but I maintained my composure. Vincent's hand found the small of my back again, a possessive gesture that wasn't lost on Sophia. "Elena Reyes, my personal assistant. Elena, this is Sophia Russo, an old acquaintance." Sophia's laugh was like velvet dragged over broken glass. "Is that what we're calling it now? How diplomatic of you." She extended a hand adorned with blood-red nails. Charmed, I'm sure. I accepted the handshake, meeting her gaze directly. Her fingers were ice-cold, her grip painfully tight. Vincent always did have a weakness for pretty, vulnerable things. She released my hand, turning her attention back to him. "We need to talk, Vincent, privately." A muscle ticked in his jaw, the only sign that her presence affected him. "This isn't the time or place, Sophia." "It never is with you." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for him, though I caught the words. "They know about Miami. All of it." Vincent's expression didn't change, but I felt him go utterly still. "Elena, give us a moment." Dismissed, I retreated to a discreet distance, watching as they moved to a quiet corner of the ballroom, their conversation intense but inaudible. Sophia's hand came to rest on Vincent's arm, her body angling toward his with practiced intimacy. A sharp pang shot through me. Something dangerous close to jealousy. Ridiculous. I was Vincent's employee, not his lover. Whatever history he shared with this woman was none of my concern, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from them, cataloging every gesture, every micro-expression, the way he leaned slightly away from her touch, the tightening around his eyes when she spoke, the almost imperceptible shake of his head. Their conversation ended abruptly. Sophia's face hardened before she composed herself, leaning in to press a lingering kiss to Vincent's cheek. As she pulled away, her eyes found mine across the room, a triumphant smile playing at her lips before she turned and glided away. Vincent returned to my side, his expression inscrutable. "We're leaving. Is everything all right?" I asked as he guided me swiftly toward the exit. "Fine," he replied curtly. Change of plans. In the car, he was silent, tension radiating from him in waves. I knew better than to press for information. Instead, I watched the city lights blur past the window, trying to make sense of the evening's events and my own confused emotions. To my surprise, we didn't return to the estate. Instead, the car took us to a private airstrip outside the city, where a sleek jet waited, engines already humming. "Where are we going?" I asked, as Vincent ushered me up the steps. "Miami." His face was grim in the cabin lights. "Pack a bag when we return to the estate. We leave in 3 hours. "Miami? But I don't have a passport with me. It's been taken care of." He cut me off, moving to speak with the pilot, leaving me to wonder just how thoroughly he'd planned for contingencies like this. And what exactly had happened in Miami that could put that look on Vincent Castellano's face? True to his word, 3 hours later we were airborne, the city lights receding beneath us. I sat across from Vincent in the luxurious cabin, dressed now in the casual clothes I'd hastily packed, the diamonds replaced by a simple gold necklace that had been my mother's. Vincent worked on his laptop, making occasional phone calls in rapid Italian that I could only partially understand. Something about shipments, schedules being moved up, security protocols. The tension hadn't left him. If anything, it had intensified, coiling around him like a spring wound too tight. Finally, he closed the laptop, pouring himself a glass of scotch from the cabin's well-stocked bar. "You should rest," he said, noticing my exhaustion. "It's a 3-hour flight. The bedroom is through there." He nodded toward a door at the rear of the cabin. "I'm fine," I lied, fighting a yawn. "Are you going to tell me what's happening?" Vincent studied me for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "There's a situation with one of my business interests in Miami." Sophia brought information that requires my immediate attention. "What kind of situation?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "The kind that doesn't concern assistants, no matter how observant they might be." I felt a flare of frustration after weeks of being told to watch, listen, remember, to be an extension of him. I was still kept at arm's length when it truly mattered. "Then why bring me along?" I challenged, too tired to be cautious. "Because I don't trust you alone at the estate right now." The blunt honesty surprised me. Not with Sophia back in the picture. "You think she would approach me? I think Sophia is dangerous in ways you can't begin to comprehend." His voice hardened. "And I think your loyalty is still developing." The accusation stung. "I've done everything you've asked of me." "Yes, for your mother's sake." He set down his glass, leaning forward. "But true loyalty isn't born from necessity or fear, Elena. It's a choice, one you haven't fully made yet." His perception was uncomfortably accurate. Despite weeks in his employ, living in his home, I still thought of escape sometimes, still maintained a careful emotional distance. "And you? Where does your loyalty lie?" I asked quietly. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that I would dare question him. "My loyalty is to my family, always." "Sophia is family?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Vincent's expression shuddered. Sophia is complicated. Go get some rest, Elena. Tomorrow will be challenging enough without exhaustion clouding your judgment. Dismissed once again, I retreated to the bedroom, closing the door behind me. The space was small but luxurious. A queen-sized bed with silk sheets, a tiny ensuite bathroom, soft lighting that could be dimmed to darkness. I lay down fully clothed, too wired to change despite my fatigue. My mind raced with questions. What was happening in Miami? What was Vincent's relationship with the enigmatic Sophia? And most disturbing of all, why did the thought of them together fill me with such irrational jealousy? I must have dozed despite my racing thoughts, because I woke to the sensation of the plane beginning its descent. Straightening my rumpled clothes, I returned to the main cabin to find Vincent on the phone again, his voice low and urgent. "We land in 10 minutes, he said as he ended the call. "A car will be waiting. We'll go directly to the harbor." Dawn was breaking over Miami as we deplaned, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. A black SUV with tinted windows waited on the tarmac, a bulky man in a suit holding the door open. Vincent's hand found its customary place at the small of my back as he guided me into the vehicle. The Miami that flashed by outside the windows wasn't the one of tourist brochures. No South Beach glamour or Art Deco charm. Instead, we drove through industrial areas, past shipping containers and warehouses, to a private marina where massive yachts bobbed in the early morning light. The largest yacht in the marina loomed before us, a gleaming white behemoth with tinted windows, and the name Vendetta emblazoned on its hull in elegant script. As we approached, I noticed armed men positioned discreetly around the perimeter, their watchful eyes following our progress up the gangplank. "Stay close to me," Vincent murmured, his hand at the small of my back. "Speak only when spoken to. Observe everything." The yacht's interior was a study in ostentatious wealth. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, gold fixtures. We were led through a series of rooms to a spacious salon at the rear of the vessel, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the harbor. 3 men awaited us, seated around a glass table laden with breakfast that no one was eating. I recognized Antonio from our dinner weeks ago, looking considerably more haggard than before. Beside him sat an elderly man in a wheelchair, his wiry frame and hawkish features suggesting strength despite his obvious frailty. The third man was younger, perhaps in his 30s, with Antonio's features, but harder, crueler. "Vincent." The elderly man's voice was surprisingly strong. "Right on time, as always." "Don Salvatore." Vincent inclined his head slightly, a show of respect, but not submission. "I came as soon as I heard." The old man's sharp eyes moved to me. "And who is this?" "My assistant, Elena Reyes. She has my complete confidence." Vincent's tone made it clear the matter wasn't open for discussion. The younger man snorted dismissively. "Another pretty toy, Vincent? I thought you'd learned your lesson after Sophia." Vincent's expression didn't change, but I felt him tense beside me. "Elena, this is Marco Russo, Sophia's brother. And of course, you remember Antonio." Antonio wouldn't meet my eyes, fidgeting with his coffee cup. Whatever had brought us here clearly had him terrified. "Sit," Don Salvatore commanded. "We have much to discuss and little time." Vincent guided me to a seat beside him, his hand briefly squeezing mine, a warning or reassurance, I wasn't sure which. "Tell me what happened," Vincent said once we were settled. Marco leaned forward, his handsome face twisted with contempt. "What happened is your operation was compromised. 3 shipments seized by the DEA in the past month, 5 million in product lost, and a trail that leads directly back to your people." "If you're suggesting I have a leak," Vincent began, his voice dangerously soft. "Not suggesting, stating." Marco slammed his hand on the table, making the china rattle. "We have proof." Don Salvatore raised a gnarled hand, silencing his grandson. "What Marco means to say is that we have concerns that require immediate attention before our mutual interests are further compromised." The conversation continued in veiled terms: shipping routes, customs officials, distribution networks. But I understood enough. These men weren't discussing legitimate cargo. The realization shouldn't have shocked me. I'd known what Vincent was from the beginning. Yet hearing it laid bare, Seeing the actual business of organized crime conducted over coffee and pastries made it suddenly, horrifyingly real. The DEA has an informant. Antonio finally spoke up, his voice quavering slightly. Someone high up in your organization. The raids were too precise, too coordinated. Vincent's face remained impassive. And you believe this because we received this yesterday. Marco slid a manila envelope across the table. Vincent opened it, removing several photographs which he studied without expression before passing them to me. I nearly gasped aloud. The photos showed Vincent's head of security, a man I knew as Dominic, meeting with what were clearly federal agents. Dominic has been with me for 15 years, Vincent said, his voice betraying nothing of what he must be feeling. Since we were children. Loyalty has its price, Don Salvatore observed quietly. And the federal government pays well these days. A heavy silence fell over the room. I kept my eyes on the photographs, afraid of what I might see if I looked at Vincent. The betrayal, the rage, the hurt. What do you propose? Vincent finally asked. Clean house, Marco said bluntly. Starting with Dominic, make an example. Show everyone what happens to traitors. And if I refuse? Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then our families go our separate ways. All agreements nullified. All territories renegotiated. The threat hung in the air, its implications clear even to me. War. Bloodshed. The dissolution of whatever fragile peace existed between these powerful men. Vincent stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. Verify this information independently. Of course, Don Salvatore nodded. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. As we exited the salon, I felt Marco's eyes following us, his gaze lingering on me with unsettling intensity. Once we were alone in a private stateroom, Vincent pulled out his phone, making a series of rapid calls in Italian too quick for me to follow. Is it true? I asked when he finally disconnected. About Dominic. Vincent's expression was cold, distant. It appears so. What will you do? He looked at me then, really looked at me, as if trying to read my soul. What would you do, Elena, if someone you trusted absolutely betrayed you, endangered everything and everyone you care about? The question wasn't hypothetical. He was testing me, gauging my reaction, my morality. I don't know, I answered honestly. I've never been in that position. Haven't you? His voice softened slightly. You betrayed your own principles the moment you accepted my offer. You knew what I was, what my business entails, yet you chose your mother's well-being over your moral qualms. His words struck like a physical blow. He was right, of course. I'd made my choice with open eyes, selling pieces of myself for my mother's care. Was I so different from Dominic, who'd apparently sold his loyalty for federal protection? The difference, Vincent said as if reading my thoughts, is that you've never pretended to be something you're not. Your conflict has been visible from the beginning. He moved closer, his hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from my face. Dominic looked me in the eyes every day for 15 years while plotting my destruction. The gentle touch belied the cold fury in his voice. I shivered, suddenly afraid. Not of Vincent, but of what was about to happen. I need you to do something for me, he said, his hand still lingering near my face. Something important. What? Go back to the estate. Today. There's a jet waiting to take you. Surprise and something like hurt flashed through me. You're sending me away? I'm keeping you safe, he corrected. What happens next isn't something you should witness. I understood then. Vincent was about to wage war. Against Dominic, against whoever else had betrayed him, possibly against federal authorities. He was shielding me from the violence to come. No, I said, surprising both of us. Vincent's eyebrows rose. No? I'm your assistant, your shadow. You said it yourself. An extension of your authority. I met his gaze steadily. If you send me away now, everyone will see it as weakness, protection. They'll think you don't trust me. Something flickered in his eyes, respect, perhaps, or simple surprise at my boldness. It's dangerous, he said softly. Once certain lines are crossed, there's no going back. I crossed my lines the moment I said yes to you, I replied. I'm already implicated, already part of this world. Vincent studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then slowly, he nodded. Very well. But you stay by my side at all times. Do exactly as I say, without question. Understood. Understood. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of tension and carefully orchestrated violence. Vincent moved through Miami like an avenging angel, methodically dismantling the network of betrayal that had formed within his organization. Dominic disappeared without a trace. Several others, men whose names I'd heard in passing during my time with Vincent, similarly vanished. I witnessed none of the actual violence, but I saw its aftermath in the grim satisfaction on Vincent's face, in the renewed respect and fear he commanded from his associates. By the time we returned to the yacht for a final meeting with Don Salvatore, the message had been sent. Betrayal of Vincent Castellano would not be tolerated. It seems congratulations are in order, Don Salvatore said as we settled in the salon once more. You've handled the situation decisively. The leak has been contained, Vincent replied simply. Marco, watching from the corner, seemed almost disappointed that bloodshed had been averted between our families. Antonio, by contrast, looked relieved to the point of tears. There is one more matter to discuss, Don Salvatore continued, his shrewd eyes moving between Vincent and me. The question of trust. Vincent tensed beside me. My house is in order. Yes, but how do we ensure it stays that way? The old man's gaze settled on me. Relationships between our families have always been strengthened by more permanent bonds. The implication hung in the air, a tangible thing. Sophia was a mistake, Vincent said flatly. One I won't repeat. Don Salvatore nodded slowly. Perhaps. Or perhaps the mistake was in choosing a woman who already had divided loyalties. His gnarled finger pointed at me. This one is different. I see it in the way she watches you. The way she stands beside you despite knowing what you are. I sat very still, understanding washing over me in a cold wave. This had never been about Dominic, or shipments, or territorial disputes. This entire scenario, from Sophia's appearance at the gala to the revelation of the betrayal, had been orchestrated to test Vincent, to test me. Elena is not part of this discussion. Vincent's voice had gone dangerously quiet. Everything is part of the discussion when it comes to family business, Don Salvatore countered. You know our traditions. You know what's required to heal the breach between our houses. Marriage. He was talking about marriage, a business arrangement sealed in blood and vows. My blood ran cold at the thought. I think we should hear what the young lady has to say, Don Salvatore continued, turning his hawkish gaze on me. Elena, you've seen our world now. You understand what's at stake. Would you stand with Vincent officially as his wife? Would you bind our families together and ensure peace for another generation? The room fell silent, all eyes on me. I looked at Vincent, searching his face for some clue, some indication of what he wanted. His expression remained carefully neutral. But something in his eyes, a vulnerability I'd never seen before, made my decision for me. With respect, Don Salvatore, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My relationship with Vincent is between us, not a bargaining chip in your negotiations. Marco made a sound of outrage, but Don Salvatore silenced him with a gesture, his weathered face creasing into what might have been a smile. She has spirit, he observed to Vincent, like fire in her veins. You'll need that in the years to come. He extended a gnarled hand to me. After a moment's hesitation, I took it, surprised by the strength in his grip. Welcome to the family, child, he said softly, whether you wear the ring yet or not. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of Vincent's, our bedroom, watching the sunset paint the estate grounds in gold and crimson. So much had changed since that fateful night when Vincent had first called me to his office. My mother was thriving under her new treatment protocol, well enough now to visit regularly. I had grown into my role as Vincent's partner in all but name, learning the intricacies of his legitimate businesses while remaining carefully ignorant of the darker aspects of his empire. And Vincent himself had changed, or perhaps simply revealed more of himself to me. The cold, controlled man I'd first met still existed, still ruled his domain with an iron fist. But with me, in private, He showed other sides. Intelligence, dry humor, unexpected tenderness. I felt his presence before I heard him, a shift in the air that my body had learned to recognize. His arms encircled my waist from behind, pulling me against the solid warmth of his chest. "What are you thinking about so intently?" he murmured against my hair. "The first night you summoned me to your office," I replied honestly. How terrified I was. "And now?" His lips brushed the sensitive spot below my ear. "Now I hesitated, searching for the right word. Not happy. That was too simple for the complex web of emotions that bound me to this man. Not content. There was too much fire between us for mere contentment. Complete, I finally said. For better or worse, this life, with you, completes me. He turned me in his arms, his dark eyes searching mine. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I thought about the girl I'd been 6 months ago, exhausted, desperate, invisible. I thought about my mother, healthy and smiling for the first time in years. I thought about the things I'd witnessed in Miami, the moral compromises I'd made, the world of power and danger I now inhabited. "No," I said truthfully. "I don't regret choosing you." Vincent's smile, rare and genuine, transformed his face. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. "Don Salvatore has been pressuring me for months," he said, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring that caught the fading sunlight like fire. "But I wanted this to be our choice, not business, not family obligation. Just us." My breath caught in my throat. "Vincent." "Marry me, Elena," he said simply. "Not because the old man demands it, not because it's convenient or practical. Marry me because somewhere along the way, you became essential to me. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it." I looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. Dangerous, complicated, ruthless, and yet capable of such unexpected tenderness. The man who had changed everything. "Yes," I whispered, watching his face transform with genuine joy as he slipped the ring onto my finger. "Yes, I'll marry you." As his lips met mine, sealing our future with a kiss, I knew that the security cameras were still watching, recording this moment as they had recorded our first meeting. But this time, I didn't care. This time, I belonged exactly where I was, in the arms of the man who had seen something in me that I hadn't even seen in myself. The Mafia boss had checked the cameras to watch his maid, and what he saw had changed everything.